They took my microphone off by accident.
Okay.
Can we have a round of applause for Carolyn McCall at least, please? Thank you very much. That's easy. Got out of it. Got out of it. You see, I wasn't late. They just took my microphone off. Anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, Carolyn, good to see you. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
You look very nervous.
I'm not.
Got any scandals you want to let us know about? Anything?
No.
Cooking? No?
No.
Okay. There's a lot to get through. Various issues in the news which we might get to. But given who's in the room and the nature of the conversations that have been had today, let's talk about your financial health. Let's talk a bit about the sector. I wonder if we could just start by continuing a bit of a conversation we're having in the green room watching that last session, where people would talk about what a tough couple of years it's been in the industry. What would you say to people here, work at independent production sectors, companies who've had a tough time and who want to hear there's hope for the future?
So I think look, it has been tough. I think if you're an indie, if you were a free-to-air broadcaster dependent on advertising revenue across Europe, 2023 was a really, really tough year. And I think but 2022 was a bumper year. And so what we find helpful is looking back to 2019, pre-COVID. So you didn't have the COVID effect, then you didn't have the peak of 2022. And then I think what's happened in 2023 is actually, I think the word market correction was used in the last, I don't use that term because I don't think it's about a market correction. I think what's happened is that you had free-to-air broadcasters right across Europe who were commissioning less content because they were looking at protecting their profits because they had to. And then I think you also had the writers and actors strike, which for us was a kind of £80 million deferment, so shift. But shift means you can't fit it all into 1 year, it just shifts and some of it comes in and some of it goes into the year after. So there was a huge chunk that came out of 2023. And I think both of those effects have been very difficult for the industry. But actually, 2023 was still a higher year in terms of revenue than 2019 for production. And this year, I would say, is still, it's not easy. Nothing is easy. Nothing is easy. But the ad market has recovered. And talking to a lot of my counterparts in Europe, TF1, RTL, all of them, they're all finding it much easier and they're all talking about commissioning. Both from ITV Studios. So we've got two hats here with a broadcaster commissioner as well as a studios business. And I think I've told you why I think, our revenue in studios is down, but our profits are up. And so we've been able to say to the market that our belief and our confidence in the production business is strong. We've committed to a growth target of 5% over 5 years, CAGR. We've committed to a margin of 13 to 15%. So we wouldn't be doing that externally if we didn't really believe in the market. And so I think to indies, what I would say, which is where you asked the question, I think Kevin said this at Edinburgh, is the door's wide open. We commissioned more UK content last year and more new UK content last year than we did in 2022. So it's not true to say that our commissioning budget went down. It might go down a little bit this year. But that's for different reasons. It's just different phasing. So I think indies, don't be, we want new ideas. We want to hear from indies, and we not only do we have to commission 25% of our commissioning budget through indies, but we want to. So and we're completely committed to the UK. And
in terms of overall health of ITV, the Euros is obviously always a bumpy year, so the Euros helps. Margins of tens of millions, 50, 60, maybe on a 40, 50, something, but big numbers. How's ITV, were you confirming how much it was?
No, I was just shrugging.
Shrugging, okay. Give us a sense of how you're feeling about how ITV is performing financially overall this year. So you've talked a bit about indie.
No, look, honestly, this year is a better year for sure. The ad market is better, but more importantly, I think that we have really transformed the business. So, when you've talked to me before and others have, I'd be saying we are transforming. We've got so much more to do. We're only 30% of the way in, 40%. I would say we've now transformed the business and we're now having to improve on that. We're having to continue to transform, but a lot of our heavy lifting has been done over the last 5 years. And that means data, technology, digital foundation, Planet V, which is our big ad platform, being a free-to-air ad-funded broadcaster, that matters a great deal. We've expanded studios.
ITVX.
ITVX obviously has been a big win for us. But we couldn't have done ITVX when I joined ITV because we didn't have any digital platform. So we've had to build that all from scratch. So, we're now in a position where, we are offering viewers what they want because they can watch content wherever they want, however they want. They can get ITV, on any device, all of those things. That sounds so normal.
Yeah. But it wasn't when you took over.
They couldn't do that 3 years ago.
How has the business shifted, though? So when you came in, how much of it came from advertising, most of which was linear, bit of digital advertising versus streaming, and how's that changed? How's the balance changed?
So when I joined, 45% of the revenue was from non-ad revenue, right? So
non-ads.
Yeah, non-advertising revenue.
And that includes
45%.
ITV Studios.
No, so that's non-advertising revenue.
Oh, sorry, right, yeah.
And then this year, 60% of it will be from digital and studios, is another way of looking at it. So 60% of our revenue now comes from growth businesses, which is digital ad revenue and digital revenue and studios. And in 2026, we're pretty confident that 2/3 of it will come from digital and studios. So it's been a marked shift, and this is all about strategically just ensuring that we were not wholly dependent on linear advertising, which is a massive, brilliant cash engine. It's a fantastic thing to have, and we have a super strength there. We're market leader by a long way, but it is cyclical. I don't believe the production industry is cyclical. It has a small cyclical effect because of free-to-air broadcasters, but fundamentally it's a lumpy business, studios, but it's not cyclical. People are going to commission. Whereas I think, obviously linear advertising is deeply tied to the economy and it is cyclical.
Yeah.
So we had to get away from that, and our whole strategy has been to diversify away from that, expand studios, get the right kinds of companies into the portfolio of studios, and obviously develop the digital business.
Do you think that story's been sufficiently appreciated, though? Because when I covered ITV for many years, there were two kind of hardy perennials. One was that people would always say ITV's about to be bought, and it never happens. For lots of different reasons. But the other would be that I found you would report some quite healthy financial results, and the share price wouldn't really go up in a concomitant way. So why is that, do you think? Is that because people don't really understand that you have shifted the business? Is it because of general scepticism about TV? What is it?
I think it's a really good question. I think actually the UK equity market is kind of in a tough place.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think if you are a UK stock and not a multinational in the FTSE, then you're in quite a tough place, right? Having said that, you can't underestimate the effect of invasion of Ukraine, and that awful cost of living, and it was a crisis, which continues. I mean, a lot of people are still having a very tough time out there. People forget that. It's not reported on quite so much. But, the cost of living crisis it was very tough for the UK stock market for UK-facing consumer businesses, and we're a bellwether for stuff like that because we have so much of our money, we take so much money from advertising. So I think, our shareholders believe in the story, and that's really important. So we've got a lot of long holders, and they get it. But they also, sometimes the market is impatient. Everyone wants transformation to happen in about 5 days, and actually it takes much longer than that. We're not anywhere completely through it, but it's taken 5 or 6 years to get to where we are, and we're in a much better place than we were before, for viewers and for advertisers.
And what sort of viewer growth and what sort of revenue growth are you now seeing on ITVX?
Okay, so viewers, double digits. So in 2023, about 26% growth, which is great, but we've sustained that this year, and so to date, that's gone up 25%. So viewer growth is good. We're doing 1.5 billion streams, which is massively up, as you'd expect. Our monthly active users have gone from 3 million to 15 million, so really good. Honestly, ITVX has been a success, and I think the most important thing for me is that we're getting more frequency, so more people are coming more often to ITVX, and then when they do come to ITVX, they dwell. So the dwell time has gone up. So 90% of people that come to ITVX will go on and watch something else. And any streamer will tell you that's what they try to do all the time.
And is a digital eyeball worth as much to you as a linear eyeball?
You asked Alex this, and the answer is I agree with Alex, which is yes. But it's more complicated than that, because our shareholders always ask us that. So because your target, and this is all about the ad revenue, because you're highly targeted on the digital eyeball, you pay more for that very personalized targeting, right? So your cost per thousand is going to be much higher. But there's no substitute for the volume of money you will get. You know, the ad money you would take on one big event, Euros being a great example, you know, where you're getting 15, 16, 17, 22 million people watching at the same time, you're going to take a hell of a lot more money, although your CPT will be lower. So for us, what's brilliant, and I think is a real competitive advantage, is that we have this amazingly strong commercial proposition because we have mass simultaneous reach, those audiences that advertisers want. We have highly personalized targeting at scale. So we're getting like, you can get 2 million viewers on ITVX quite, you know, for Love Island or more. And you can segment, and you can give them exactly the profile they want. And we have good data for that. We do data matching with Boots and with MasterCard and so on. And then we have creative partnerships where we really partner with people to really, really kind of get close to the brands. And so eBay with Love Island, Boots in store, merchandising, a whole range of stuff. So we have that. No one else can do that at the scale we do it, and that's a fantastic strength.
So let's go back to the people in this room, particularly those in the industry, but in independent production companies. You've had a tough few years, a tough 12 months. They've seen headlines about how you've cut 200 roles earlier this year as part of your rebalancing. They know, as everyone always talks about, this is a really Darwinian era for content. And they might look at ITV and think that really where you're prioritising is the big shiny shows, the Ant and Dec, the 1% Club. What do they need to know about how, A, you're still open for business and how they can get some of that business if they can't get in with your attention or Julian Bellamy's attention with those shiny shows?
I think the 1% Club are going to be delighted to be called a big shiny show. That's brilliant. It's a brilliant show. Absolutely.
It is a big show.
No, it is a big show. It's a great show. Yeah. But it was, you know, that was a commission only 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, it's a relatively new show. Anyway, I would say the really important thing, you know, we talk about redundancies. That is because we're facing into the future and we're really having to look at everything we do. And we're going to continue to have to look at everything we do because we want to be around for the next 70 years and thriving. And if we stay as we are, we're not going to do that. We'd be no good to the indies because we won't be here. So the really, really important thing is to continue to succeed. And you know, and it is restructuring. I mean, 80% of the people that left were voluntary redundancies, so had been there a long time and were leaving and might have been coming up to retirement, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I just think we can't stay as we are. We have to look at everything all the time.
No, of course, but I'm just asking on their behalf how they get some of your business. That's what we're really motivated by. You know, they've had a crap few years. You've got a lot of money. You say things are turning around. What are you looking at?
Well, I don't think, we're having a better year this year than we were having last year, and we've had many successful years, and we won't change how we approach the indies or how they approach us. I mean, I think there's no barrier to indies with ITV, none at all, and I'd be surprised if anyone said there was.
Sure.
I mean, I think, you know, the commissioners want to commission. As
part of that transformation, you've shut CITV, but most of the smaller channels that you have on the EPG, I imagine, are quite decent little earners because they've got sunk costs because you've already paid for the content, and they just sit there picking off a little demographic. Are you currently looking at shutting any other channels?
I think CITV, we did that because actually it just didn't make sense to have a whole channel for children's when a lot of the stuff we could do could be done online. So, you know, ITVX...
Because children weren't going on the EPG. So.
No, well, ITVX is a brilliant, you know, you can watch it on your iPad, you can watch it on your phone, you know, etc. So, I mean, that was, you know... Now, I think the channel conversation, just like the conversation I've had about everything else, which is, I don't have an answer. You know, we're not planning to shut some, but you know, we have to keep that under review because at the moment they're profitable. If they're not, we have to look at it and we have to say, what else are they doing for us? They might be doing something different for us, that's fine. And you know, I mean, it's very important. We don't only do things for profit, right? So
really?
we are a commercial PSB and we have to make a profit because we have shareholders. We don't get a check at the beginning of the year. You know, from anybody. You know, where, you know, we have to, it's a brutal world, like, you know, it's brutal. And so we have to be very careful about what we keep, what we don't keep, what we review, what we change. It's really tough.
Lisa Nandy is going to be speaking here later today, as a few people have mentioned. One of the things that Keir Starmer's government has done early in its tenure is announce that it's going to ban ads on junk food before 9 p.m. And I'm not suggesting... What was that about?
I just went,
You just went, Okay, what does that mean?
Well, it's been a battle we've been fighting with other commercial PSBs for some time because actually, if you look at the numbers, this is about childhood obesity. 95% of adults watch ITV before 9 p.m. 95% of adults. Kids are on YouTube, right? I'm not, we can't have it all ways. I mean, you say the demographic trends are that, TV don't attract, kids 16 to 25s. They're not on TV much. They will come in for the odd shows. So you can't have it both ways. Anyway, so, and we've done loads of research to say this is not going to make a dent in childhood obesity, but it is a political thing. And so we're going to have to, we're going to have to mitigate it in any way we can.
So you think the potential gain?
So, talking about the indies, this is really not good news for commercial PSBs because this is how we make, it's part of how we make our money.
So how much could it hurt you?
Well,
actually?
We haven't put a number on it. I think the analysts have already estimated in their numbers what they think it would be, and they've put in, some of them put in 30 million, some put in 40 million, some put in higher. So there's a range of, but it's millions and millions of pounds, really. So we're going to have to look at what we can do to mitigate that, and that comes in at the end of next year.
But you
So
think the
it's
potential
imminent.
gains in public health are dubious because kids aren't watching TV then, but
But
the
it's
potential
not just
harm
that,
in
yeah.
commercially for you and other PSBs is significant.
It is, yeah. I think, well, when I say harm is significant, look, there's always, we'll find our way through it. So I don't want to over.
No, but it's.
But
potentially
what is it
painful.
going to affect? It's going to affect, it might affect the content budget. It might affect the way we do some things. It might affect some events that we have to do. It will affect what we do because it will be millions and millions of pounds off our advertising.
Why did you sell your stake in Britbox International for a huge amount of money to someone who made you an offer you couldn't refuse?
That's kind of why. Amazingly. I mean, for us,
I just
that
want
was...
to understand your thinking.
Well,
I don't know if you've spoken about it publicly.
It was a great success. It was a good joint venture. We worked very, very well with the BBC, actually, and it was a great global it was a great showcase of British content because there's BBC and ITV content. It was great. But the thing is, it's not core to us. It's not our core strategy. Our strategy is to be global with studios and to expand globally with studios and to be a really brilliant national broadcaster, right? So, and whether that's ITV or ITVX, and Britbox doesn't really fit that. And so we didn't look to sell it, but we got a fantastic offer and we took it.
Okay. We'll come back to that point about being a brilliant national broadcaster in the context of the NTAs in a second. Just before we do that, how can anyone take ITV seriously on impartiality when you've got a former Labour cabinet member interviewing his wife about government policy?
I wondered if you'd ask that. Okay, so...
Bad to ask you.
It was a very, very tricky morning because
Particularly for viewers who are trying to understand what was going on.
Tricky politically. There was
Particularly
almost
tricky for your reputation
national...
for impartiality.
Okay, so let me come to that.
Great.
National emergency almost being called. And so we got very short notice that the Home Secretary was coming on the show because she was doing a whole round, but it was unexpected. And we believe that it was fair and impartial. And actually, Ofcom have just ruled, but amazingly, no one has picked up on the fact that Ofcom are not pursuing these complaints because they believe it's fair, balanced, and impartial. Now, you'll have your opinion.
No, I don't have an opinion. I just have, I do have a judgment on it. I think Ed Balls is a fantastic broadcaster.
Yes.
But you see, I've got no problem with impartiality. I've never belonged to a political party. I don't spend time hanging around with politicians because I want to give them a hard time. And the issue isn't whether or not Ed Balls is a great broadcaster. It's whether or not you can take GMB seriously for impartiality. Because he's not just a member of the same political party as the person he was interviewing. He's a member of the same household.
I do know that.
And the same marriage.
And can I just say, he
and
wasn't actually supposed to ask a question.
He wasn't asking her about her favourite childhood memories or, where she'd been, to what she'd done for the weekend. He was asking about existing government policy.
So would we do it again? No. Okay.
Shouldn't you have taken
but
greater
was
measures
it
to stop
impartial,
happening?
fair, and balanced, and did they behave professionally? Yes.
How could it be impartial, fair,
Well,
and balanced when he's
you have
interviewing
your
his
opinion.
wife?
You have your
I
opinion.
don't have an opinion. I'm
No,
asking.
you have.
I don't know. No.
What it was, he barely, he asked a few questions, but I think Kate was leading on that, wasn't she? And so I do think you've just got to say, if Ofcom are telling you that they've looked at it, they're not pursuing this any further because they thought it was fair, balanced, and impartial, that's it.
I don't have any opinions, Carolyn, as you should know by now. Except about Ed Balls, who's great. The NTAs. He is fantastic.
I'll let him know.
He's fantastic. The NTAs, I think you've spoken about this a lot, and this is definitely a softball question, but there is something for people to try and understand in this room about the success of Mr. Bates. Because if you're really honest, when you and Kevin first, commissioned that, and you got a sense this was a story that was in the air, you couldn't have foreseen that it would become this national moment in the way that it had done. Why do you think that worked in the way it did?
Well, I think the true story is that I'm particularly proud that we made it, so commissioned it and produced it. I mean, that's but it's a difficult decision, actually. Polly will say, Polly was the one, and Kevin will say this, Polly really loved it. She loved Gwyneth, the writer, she loved the crew, she loved Patrick Spencer and she had worked together, obviously, because we backed him as talent. So she was the one, she was the champion. And it was the most difficult decision was really for Julian, who was the producer, who runs studios, as everyone knows. And he had to take the call on, he didn't think it would make money globally, right? He was like, this is a very UK-centric, and it is. But actually, what has been amazing about it is it humanized a story that had to be told. It was a very emotional story, brilliantly acted. And, as you know, I mean, this story has been going on for 20 years. And I think what TV does is it brings the emotions out there onto the surface, and people related to it, and people felt very, very strongly that something terrible had happened, which it had. And so I think the reason it suddenly galvanized the public was because they felt something about it. They didn't just read it and think, oh God, nothing's going to happen about that. They felt something about it. And actually it's now in 9, I think maybe even 13 markets have bought it. So actually it has gone worldwide.
So I was going to say, how does Mr. Bates make you money? Is it, to what extent is it you actually sell that around the world, and to what extent is it kind of halo effect around the ITV
Well,
brand?
actually, it's a good question, because, there's this whole thing about overnights.
Yeah.
And, you can be obsessed about the overnights, and we're not anymore.
The people in this room are.
Well, I mean, honestly...
Why are they
Well,
wrong
you
to
need
think
to be
about the
I
overnights?
think you need to be looking at C28, because actually, I'll give you an example. Mr. Bates started with 4 million and ended at 15 million per episode.
Was it on a Sunday? I can't remember. Was it Sunday?
I can't remember.
Yeah, right,
I can't remember.
I can't remember.
And every single one of our top dramas, again, Mr. Bates being one, Trigger Point, Red Eye, Vera, you name it, After the Flood, one of Nicola's, they were all our top dramas. They were all around the 4 million on the overnight and the C5 or C7, and they all tripled in size or doubled in size in 28 days. And you can monetize that now. So it's not just about on linear, it's also about what you're going to get on VOD. So I think the way to look at ratings should be very different, both from production industry and obviously with advertisers. Advertisers have got to start changing quite dramatically the way they actually look at how they pay for that. They shouldn't just be paying for C7.
So what does that mean in practice? Does it mean cutting deals throughout the run?
It means you look at you look at 28 days, because people are watching it. People are not. Some people will come for one event and then they'll stream it and they'll watch it whenever they want. And so you're still giving them audience. You're still giving them, great context.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This conference is called Keeping Our Creative Edge, and you. Talking of that, you had a very successful night at the NTAs a few days ago.
We did.
If you're really honest, and you're going to be diplomatic, but do the NTAs matter to you more than the BAFTAs?
Obviously, when you're winning, they matter a great deal.
But do they actually matter more than you? And it's slightly kind of like this because the people vote for them.
Do you know why they matter? They really matter because the feeling you get internally, the pride it instills, and the kind of atmosphere it creates is fantastic, and it galvanizes people to do more brilliant creative work. It does. And, we won Channel of the Year as well. And as Kevin will say, it really matters when you win it. It doesn't matter.
But does it matter more than the BAFTAs because the people vote for it?
Well,
you couldn't possibly say.
I couldn't possibly say.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, can we all thank Carolyn McCall? Thank you very much indeed.